Hello, wonderful. I am here with Charlotte Mather, and we are going to talk about hypervigilance. I know after situations, people say, oh, I just feel like I'm hypervigilant and hyper independent and always trying to do everything myself and always stuck in that flight of fight and flight. And Charlotte is perfect for this conversation. She is a hypno coach. Formerly, she went by a accredited fulfillment coach. So if you don't know what a hypno coach is, think about a conversation with a fulfillment coach, helping people overcome doubt, get past their past, get unstuck. So you can see why she was a perfect conversation for today. Hey, Charlotte, how are you?
Hi, Sarah. I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am so excited to talk. We even both have on our black and gray for this, like your background and my background. So yeah, the people listening on the podcast are not going to be able to see our amazing coordinating matching outfits that we did not plan. Charlotte, tell us, a bit about your work in hypervigilance and even what that is.
Yeah, sure. So, I come at this from a place of experience. So it isn't something that I'd even recognized, heard about, or knew existed. But I knew for a long, long time that I found it very difficult to relax.
Yeah.
I found it really difficult to stop and slow down. I found it really difficult to trust other people to take control and do things. And that showed up in my marriage, in my work. And I didn't know the reason that I was like this. I didn't even know it was a thing. And then through my hypnotherapy and my coaching practices, I started to talk to other women that felt the same. And I realized that it was a thing, that there are a lot of us out there that felt like this, that we have to be all the things to all the people all the time. And it gets so much that it becomes a real struggle. We reach burnout over and over, and yet we fall back into the same pattern. And people say, do the self-care, do the self-love. And that's really difficult to do. And that, if it's meant to be so enjoyable, why is it so difficult? And with my work, I started to look into, okay, what else could this be? And we talk about codependency a lot. So being really dependent on another person. And that's sort of the opposite to what I recognize in myself and my clients, that no way, I don't want to be dependent on anybody else, ever. Not ever,
Yes.
So then that led me to look at the sort of the healthy independence and see the spectrum of codependency at one end, and at the other end this extreme, this ultra independence of, I don't need anybody else, I've got this.
That was a beautiful explanation. And I want to point out when she said all the things to all the people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear that phrase, all the things to all the people all the time, of course, logically we hear it and go, well, that's crazy, right? We can't be that. We can't do that. But it's like there's a voice inside of us that says, but maybe you can do that. Maybe you should do that. Maybe you have to do that. Right?
Yeah, and that's the key. Maybe you have to do that.
Yes. So what do we do about it? What do we do when we're trying to tame that voice? Yeah.
So I think the first thing is to understand why we feel that we have to do that, because that's key. When you said that, that is so true. It's not that we want to, it's not that we choose to, it's that we feel this deep need. And so when we look at where that might come from, again, we'll look at codependency, because when I help people to get their head around what hyperindependence is, it's often easier to look at codependency, because we hear about and see that a lot, and we know the pitfalls of codependency, right? So when we look at codependency, they need to be dependent on another person. They cannot fulfill their own needs. And it's often a trauma response.
Right.
It's often a trauma, maybe from childhood, maybe from something that's happened as an adult. Sometimes they don't even know. We don't know why we act a certain way or we believe a certain thing. But when we look at codependency, it's a I'm not safe, I need someone else to make me feel safe. Or I'm not lovable, so I need to meet somebody else's needs in order for them to love me. We have lots of different core beliefs, and they come from a core wound, and those being, to take it down to a basic level, things like I'm not safe, I'm not loved, I'm not in control, I'm powerless, I'm not worthy, all these things that we talk about when we think about limiting beliefs. So,
well, and I'm not safe, I'm not lovable. I mean, I'm in that phrase, especially when you said I'm not powerful. And so many women I see have gotten themselves in very controlling situations because that person on the front end appears powerful, right? But then it ends up being power over, right? Rather than empowering you.
Yes.
Yeah. So they originally get in there to feel safe, and then it ends up being one of the most unsafe, emotionally or physically, in some circumstances that they could be in, because the person is looking to power over. Yeah,
absolutely. We hear about love addiction, which is a form of codependency. So people go, why do I attract the wrong guys all the time? I always attract these guys, and I say to them, you're not attracting them, you're attracted to them. You are searching them out because they fulfill a core belief in you that you are powerless. So therefore I need someone that is going to control me and tell me what I need to do. That it's playing into that limiting belief. And so if you can take the same core belief of I am powerless,
right,
and it could be one person takes that to the extreme of codependency because they continue to feel powerless, and it's familiar to be powerless. It's familiar to them. The subconscious loves familiarity. It loves habit. It loves repetition. So familiarity is great. It's comfortable. So let's say this person A grows up in a home as a child, and they felt powerless. Then they will continue that to look for that feeling because it's familiar. Person B might have grown up in a home where they also felt powerless, and what they're doing is fighting against that feeling to not be powerless. Therefore, I'm going to go to the other end of the extreme. I'm going to need nobody. I never ask for help. I'm never going to show I'm vulnerable. I'm going to be hyper independent, hyper vigilant, hyper every single thing I can think of to fight against this same belief. Same belief.
So and I want to point out something she said. Familiar is comfortable. With my ladies and people, it's like we have to reset normal. And when you start in your head, why do I keep attracting these people? If you can add to that, change that story you're telling yourself to, if this is my normal, I need to reset normal. Is that what you would agree with, Charlotte? Yeah. So one person tries to find their power in someone else, and and then others of us try to find our power in ourselves, but it ends up being this really extreme, unhealthy version of that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And the key is unhealthy. It's unhealthy when it's leading us toward burnout. It's leading us toward disconnection. It's leading us towards pain and unhappiness and a lack of fulfillment. And this is where I started out as a fulfillment coach. So it was the same path I was on. I was a hypnotherapist and a fulfillment coach. And what I've done is I've blended them together, and I do a hypno coaching hybrid now, which works really well. But
that's so cool.
That lack of fulfillment, that lack of being all the things to all the people all the time, and still it not being enough, that's where the pain lies, and that's where it's unhealthy. The problem is with hyper independence, we revere independence, right? We go, oh, look at her, she's so successful. Oh, she's got it all figured out. Oh, she's, she doesn't need anybody. And I used to get this all the time. I wish I was more like you. I wish I could be like you, Charlotte. I wish I could go out there and not need anybody and be confident and go for the promotions, go for the jobs, because I did really well in a corporate environment because I'm like, I can do anything. I can do that job, I can do that job, I can do your job, I can run this company because I was so independent. And then that's revered so much in society that we feel the pain and we feel that it's unhealthy, but the society is telling us what a great job we're doing and how they look up to us.
Oh, absolutely. And we brag about, it's, you know, a badge of honor to talk about how tired you are. It's a badge of honor to talk about how busy you are.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something I really catch myself on. If I say, oh, I'm too busy too, I'm like, whoa, you know, I'm choosing, or I'm too tired too. It's like, well, then I need to make some changes in my life, right? If you're too tired to function in your life on a regular basis, you need to change your life. You have the power to change your life, right?
Yeah. And we hear about burnout so much, don't we? And it's so prevalent. And I know that guys suffer as much as women, but we hear about it a lot in the circles that I'm in. You know, burnout's a real big thing, and admitting that we're on the verge of burnout. I never did. I burnt out multiple times. I took to my bed. I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. I was in so much pain. I was convinced there was something physically wrong with me. And I would disconnect from my family, friends, everyone around me. So I wouldn't want them to see me in that vulnerable state. And it's because I pushed and pushed and pushed to the point where my body said, no, enough. We can't carry on.
Well, I took a day yesterday to rest, so I'm feeling better that I prepared for this conversation.
I know. I feel like, should we just go and have a little nap and just everybody go for a little nap?
Well, I did Brendon Burchard's high performance coaching. And when you think about high performance coaching, you don't think they're going to tell you to sleep in more, to rest more, to do it. I was very frustrated because I was like, man, I paid a lot of money to be able to go faster, harder, higher, right? And here you are telling me to rest. And it was the exact same conversation, right? The exact same conversation about burnout. And now I personally consciously try to schedule what I call white space, right? My husband gets a day where it's like, no, this is your day. You know, it's my day too, but we went to brunch and had a walk in the rain and wasn't in a hurry. And The Crown just came out on Netflix. We watched a couple of episodes of The Crown, right? Awesome. And I took a nap, right? And I don't do that every Sunday, but obviously you're like me. You're a coach, right? We work odd hours. We have odd time zones we're accommodating. Sometimes we're doing things when other people aren't because that's when they're off work and that's when they're available, right? Which is okay, as long as you still have that white space and not feel bad about taking the white space, right?
That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
How did you feel? I'm intrigued taking your time.
I was okay yesterday, but I have not been okay in the past. You know, in the past it was people would say, well, you need to relax. I said, but it doesn't make me feel better.
Yeah.
I hear other people and they say relaxing makes them feel better. You know, at multiple times in my life, relaxing did not make me feel better at all, you know, and it's such an odd skill to have to learn.
Yeah. I because obviously my friends and family would recognize some of the signs of burnout when it got to the point they were like, just take a break. I'm like, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I can't. I've got to keep going. I'm fine. I've told my family and friends now know that the code word is, if I say I'm fine, I'm just busy, I'm fine, they need to stage an intervention. I mean, we're past that point now, but there was a point I'm like, if I tell you, while I was healing from this, if I tell you I'm fine, but I'm busy, then you need to intervene in some way. But there were times where they'd buy me a spa day and they'd pack me off to a spa day on my own. And there were times where, I'm not kidding, I walked out of that spa after an hour, packed my things up, got my laptop out of the boot of my car and went to a Costa and worked because I was having an awful time at the spa day. I was having palpitations. My brain couldn't turn off. It was like a feeling of guilt and fear and emotions that I couldn't recognize. And that's when I started to realize that this is an issue. This is an issue for me. It's not normal to be so uncomfortable with relaxing and stopping to the point where, you know, burning out. But that was a really painful realization, because then you ask, well, what's wrong with me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's so weird. Like, take a day off. I don't want to, right? And I was like angry. I mean, I got angry at that coach, and I was like, I don't want to take a day off, and I want to be super clear, even when you heard my language around that, it was easier to take a day off because I wanted to preserve my marriage.
Yeah.
Right. Even as I coach myself and hearing my own language, my husband got a day. But no, I took a nap and he went to the gym and I did stuff on my own too. But it's easier to give ourselves permission when it was like, well, a goal of mine is to have a very happy, healthy marriage. So it's easier to prioritize a date night than it would be to prioritize a day at the spa. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So I'm catching myself even now. So how did you start that process of learning to, I had a Post-it note and I wrote on there, "It's fine," and had a big X on there.
Great.
That was always a code word on my vision board. If I ever said it's fine or caught myself saying it's fine, to have the self-awareness to say, I'm not here to be fine. I'm here to be excellent. And excellent in rest, excellent in all the things. I know in my own life, I prioritize sleep. My husband and I had a conversation. He goes, "Yeah, you get 8 hours of sleep every night." And I said, "Well, I get more done in the day than most people." Mm-hmm. I do, right? I get so much done, but I need to be firing at all cylinders, because if I'm tired, I'll mess up.
Yeah.
And then the plate falls apart. Then you burn out. Then you give someone the wrong information. Then you mess up something that takes a lot longer to. So that was kind of one of my first things, is like getting over guilt of sleep. Mm-hmm. And when you study what sleep does for you, it's like, why would anyone feel guilty about this? It makes you smarter. It makes you thinner. It makes you happier. It makes you in a better mood. It makes you a better mother. Like, sleep is a gift.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I read Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker. And that changed I always liked my sleep anyway, I'll be honest. I always liked a good sleep, a good 8 hours. But then I read that, and any little remnant of guilt, any little aftershock of guilt was just gone. I was like, no, this is a necessity. This is like needing water, needing air.
It is. You can go, I don't know how many days you can go without eating, but you can only go 11 days without sleep and you die. So some of us are walking around half dead and not even realizing it from exhaustion. Yeah. So what are some steps you took to move past that hypervigilance, or that you tell your clients to? I know I prioritize sleep. I made white space. And I used, and it's still a technique. Sometimes it's easier to know to do it for other people than you. Like, I do think, oh gosh, I'm a coach. Somebody's going to ask me advice. And if I'm distracted and tired and sleepy and cranky, I may give them advice that hurts their lives. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person, So to me, that was a trick I learned to prioritize self-care and rest, because I always thought I wanted to show up as my best self. What are some things that have worked for you and your people?
Yeah, so similar things to start to kind of reprogram patterns and habits that we fall into because of this hyper independence. Mm-hmm. So habits we fall into might be waking up and jumping on our phone right away. Horrible
idea. Yes. And always something I've been starting the day with meditations the last 2 weeks, instead of checking Facebook.
Right. I sometimes go, I'm going to do a meditation, and I pick up my phone to get my meditation. I'm down the scroll hole straight away.
Scroll hole. That's Charlotte,
come on.
Yes.
Out you come.
Yes. It's self-discipline.
Yeah. So like you, Post-it notes, notes around, reminders. Yeah. What I like to call pattern interrupts, and it's an NLP term. Interrupting a normal pattern. Say, okay, stop what you're doing. Change it, do something else, you'll feel better. The deep work that I do is around sort of my hypno coaching framework. I call it Believing Better, and it's what we do there is we identify the core belief. So let's say that is, I am powerless, and we find the implicit memory, which is a feeling, an emotional memory. So it doesn't have to be oh yeah, I was in this place at this time with that person. It's for me, it was, right, I get a sense or a feeling that when I had that feeling first, I was hiding under my bed. I was hiding under my bed. I was a child. And so what we do with memory reconsolidation techniques is we reprogram the belief on top of that memory, the new belief that we want to believe instead, which is I am in control. I do have power. This was just a situation. I was small. I was a child. I wasn't expected to have any power or change anything, but now I have power and now I have control, and kind of almost like you might call it reparenting the inner child. There's lots of ways we can do that. We could do it with imagery, but really it's revisiting that implicit memory where it was installed. And memory reconsolidation is the only known form of neuroplasticity that erases that implicit memory rather than creating a new memory that competes with it. So it's fabulous, and it's cutting edge neuroscience. And
yeah,
when
that's interesting.
cutting edge, people are like, oh wow, that must be really new. I'm like, yeah, 20 years because in neuroscience that is new. It's studied for a long time before they kind of release the research, right? Our brains are really complex. So,
and aren't we glad, right?
Yeah, yes.
I don't want to, it's we're in a season as we record this, they're looking for a new vaccine, right?
Yes.
In the world, and it's scary, right? It's
Can
scary.
Can we take a bit longer doing that, please?
Yes. You're going to rewire my brain. Okay, that sounds great, right? Very, very interesting. Okay,
so hence cutting edge, it really is the latest science around the subconscious reprogramming process and how our brains actually work. It's a new discovery in the last 20 years. And so now, we've got this amazing tool, and there are ways, my method's hypnosis or hypno coaching. There are other methods and protocols which will reconsolidate memories. So I'm not saying this is the only way, but memory reconsolidation for me is the permanent answer to hyper independence, hypervigilance, or any subconscious beliefs that are blocking us, really.
So many of my listeners would have been in truly emotionally unsafe situations even as adults, right? So it would not have it may have been the child, but also that were actually real. So kind of the first stage they would go through is, oh, that was unsafe, because at the time they were kind of telling themselves, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Then they would be like, oh, it was that bad. And then now they're in this hypervigilance of like, well, I'll never let anybody hurt me again. I fooled me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, or whatever that phrase is, And so one of the things I do with my ladies is like remind them you're not there now. Like, you're safe now. Is that something that, well, how would you build on that?
So I guess that is the first step. You kind of remove the triggers around what they're experiencing now. To take that even further, what you want to do is provide them with a kind of mismatch of what that belief was at the time. So I am not safe, and if this situation happens again, I also won't be safe. Is okay, I'm not safe now because of X, Y, Z. Maybe I'm a child, or maybe I'm in a situation which is unsafe. But reprogramming that it doesn't mean that I wouldn't be safe again. It doesn't mean that I haven't now got the resources to cope in that situation. And so it's a really subtle kind of difference between saying, oh, you were safe back then, because clearly they weren't.
Right. Yeah. And I now have the resources to cope in that situation. That is such a empowering story to tell yourself. It is true.
Yes.
Right. It's true.
They wouldn't be reaching out for help if they didn't now have the resources, just being able to acknowledge that and the journey that they're clearly already on. They have resources now. And because what happens is that fear is triggered and they go back to that time and that memory and the resources they had at that time, which all they could do at that time is what they did. That's all they could do. They couldn't do anything else. But now they could do something different. So it can remove that fear of that reoccurrence.
So all they could do at the time is what they did. That is such a forgiving statement and true.
Yeah,
Yeah, and true.
yeah,
And I agree with it, right? If we had known better, we would have done better. At the time, we did not know better. So all you could do at the time is what you did. And now I have a different set of resources. Is that,
yes,
yeah, I
yeah,
think that's huge. I think that's huge.
yeah. There's something
Awesome. Yeah.
fascinating as well called post-traumatic growth, which kind
Yes.
of builds on that
Yes.
premise of all I could do at the time was what I did, but now I could do better, or now I've got additional resources, and that kind of builds on, that trauma has instilled something in me that I can grow from, and we see that with people that have been through horrific traumas and come out the
Absolutely.
side of it with a new perspective on life
Yeah.
and themselves.
I love that. And I want to pick up our next conversation right there. Post traumatic growth. That sounds awesome. Charlotte, tell people where they can find you and any resources you want to include in the show notes. We can tell us about those now. And then we'll be back for another conversation on part 2 of hypervigilance.
Great. So I can be found at www.charlottemathercoaching.com. Mother's Mather, like mother with an A. I'm also on Facebook. I'm prolific on my personal profile, so people can find me there. And I have a YouTube channel of my own name as well, with some hypnotic audios on there that will help listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charlotte. And we will have this conversation again.
Thank you.